It's the music, stupid. Number 72. Hey, it's Mazzy, and welcome back. This is a series, if you're new here, where I showcase 5 albums. I carefully select from this vintage collection of mine in the record library downstairs in my home in the Pacific Northwest, formerly native San Franciscan. 11 years now since I moved. Wow. Not to be confused with the Whack-A-Mole series, which I randomly pick. And I think I have a pretty eclectic selection of records here. I think I'm going to be mocked by a small group here because there's a lot of snooty record collectors that will mock at one of these, but I will defend them to a T. But I'm going to start out with probably the most recent of these, but that's still from 2006, and it is the third or fourth record by the Decemberists. This is the Crane Wife. They're a Portland band, I think originated around 2000. And this is the album that got me into that. And there was a period of time around this year, 2006-07, where I heard this record everywhere, in bars and restaurants and cafes. It just was everywhere. I love this record. It's based on a Japanese folk tale, and it kind of tells a story. But to me, I don't really follow the stories of these kind of records as much. They're just it's kind of a folk rock thing going with indie, what they call indie rock now. But it's on Capitol Records, so it's not as obviously an independent label. And, I think that indie thing, bands get thrown into that when they're not one of the massive acts. Although the Decemberists, on the road have become a very large act. And I always equate them with Arcade Fire, because I think they came around the same time, and I got into them around the same time. And the thing about both the Decemberists and Arcade Fire, even though they're different musically, for some reason I associate them. And what I find is I kind of like every other record of theirs. I'll get the next record and I'll kind of be disappointed. But this is one that really spoke to me in a way. And I just like the vibe, that folky side, a lot of great acoustic guitars. I like Colin Malloy's vocals on here. I love his voice. This is just a fantastic record. Of course, on the vinyl version, I believe it's a double record here. And it's just really, really good. Laura Veers is on it and does a great duet with Colin on Yankee Bayonet. That was a song too. The duet formation on that is just really, really beautiful. So it's a record you should check out. The Crane Wife, as performed by the Decemberists with Nate Query, John Moon, Jenny Connolly, Colin Malloy, as I said, and Chris Funk. Illustrations by Carson Ellis. Beautiful, beautiful. All their covers have this illustration. It's Colin's wife, I believe. Did I get that name right? Anyway, I love that album. So, next I'm going to go back to an album recorded in 1965. And I have about 5 albums by Clifton Chenier. Now, if you don't know Zydeco music, you've heard it. A lot of bands have taken from Zydeco, and Zydeco obviously takes from a lot of music. Really kind of centers around the French New Orleans Creole thing. It mixes Tejana at times. It depends obviously on the player. I've seen a lot of Zydeco music in the Bay Area over the years because it was a hub. Because this was on Arhoolie Records. This is produced by Chris Strockwitz from Arhoolie. Later sold the label to Smithsonian. He has Down Home Music in El Cerrito. But he was really a pioneer. He just didn't like rock music and big sale music, and started this wonderful label of roots music, blues, folk, bluegrass, and Clifton Chenier is one, like Queen Ida, and a handful of, centers around the accordion and washboard and things like that. It's essentially blues with that French Creole accent, and sometimes sung in French. This is an album called Louisiana Blues and Zydeco. It's just that. Recorded in Houston by Chris Strockwitz. He would record these records sometimes in studios, sometimes in living rooms, sometimes in back rooms. It's very accessible. Even groups like Los Lobos would take from this band, and of course Ry Cooder and others in that roots category. But you can almost pick up any Clifton Chenier or Queen, Zydeco. There's a handful of records, and I, again, as I said, I have about 5 of his records, and I just love it. And this is really this would be one to get. Really great, feel-good music. And this stuff would play around the Bay Area just all the time. So a favorite of mine, a favorite artist of mine, and not a lot of talk about Zydeco music around here. Now, this is one that I know I'm going to have to defend in the comments. 1968, this guy broke down barriers. This guy came out of nowhere. This guy mixed a baritone and a falsetto, mainly the falsetto thing that caught the the universe by storm. He collaborated with the Beatles on their Christmas record in 1968, and that is Tiny Tim. God bless Tiny Tim. This is his debut album, produced by Richard Perry, who worked with Carly Simon and Ringo Starr. And surprisingly, this is an excellent record. He mixes his falsetto voice with his lower baritone at times, and sometimes even duets with himself. There's a whole retro thing going back from the Gold Diggers film from the 1930s, 20s or 30s, whatever it was, with the hit that put him all over the map that he performed on the Smothers Brothers, and that is Tiptoe Through the Tulips. But I love how it starts with him alone on the ukulele. That's his kind of primary instrument, and then the orchestra and the arrangement that Richard Perry put together builds up, and it's excellent. There's a little bit of a kind of, even though this is a studio album, he'll introduce a song here and there. He'll do some classics like The Viper, Daddy, Daddy, What Is Heaven Like, Fill Your Heart, that song that David Bowie would record later. And he does a great cover version, a duet with himself, you can imagine, of Sonny and Cher's I Got You, Babe. This is an excellent album. Of course, that's his stage name, Tiny Tim. He would go through all these different names and personas prior to this. But after that performance on the Smothers Brothers, and this album became a top 20 hit in America. It's a massive record. Now, as a bonus, but not only am I going to show that debut album from 1968 produced by Richard Perry, I'm going to show this album, that Run Out Groove, that was part of Rhino, and now I think Run Out Groove doesn't exist, and they're putting out limited editions. This is a really good record, recorded in 1968, live at the Royal Albert Hall. Royal Albert Hall. Can you imagine? I believe, I can't remember, I haven't read the liner notes in a couple of years here, but I believe some of the Beatles were in attendance, especially George Harrison, and that's why they got him in that recording for the Christmas album. This is recorded in October of 1968, probably that time where the Beatles were working on those Christmas records, and it's great. He's got the orchestra, produced by Richard Perry again, double record. He comes from New York, and he does this thing in London, and the Brits go crazy. This is great. I don't care what you say. I don't have to show hipster music all the time. I don't have to show the latest prog issue all the time. Tiny Tim, live at the Albert Hall. Bonzo Dog Doodah Band were on the performance. I have to read this book again. I have to read the details. But there's my Tiny Tim section of It's the Music Stupid. Didn't see that coming, did you? Next, an album, It's the Music Stupid, the whole concept where the music comes first. Yes, we like good sound. We want a record to sound great, no matter what playback device and stereo and setup we have. But this is a record from 1975, and I got this record in 75 when the guy that managed the record store, my friend Vernon, was really into roots and country and bluegrass and what we call now newgrass music and that kind of alt country before it was called Americana. This is a wonderful record. This is a newgrass, bluegrass, a little bit of a jazzy record with great guitarist Norman Blake. You got Tuck Taylor, Sam Bush, Butch Robbins, Vassar Clements on, the great fiddle player, David Holland, and Jethro Burns. This is an acoustic album that's so delicious and so just organic. Now, I think it might have been Steve Hoffman. I read it a couple of years ago, where this is one of those great test records that Steve Hoffman pointed out. And I've had this for God, 50 years now, this year actually. So I never thought about it by then, but I played it again the other day, and it's an excellent sounding record. Try to get a clean copy because it sounds beautiful. It's on Flying Fish Records, recorded in '74 in Nashville. And again, it's that hybrid of bluegrass, country, but jazzy. And it just really soars, and it's really organic, very improvisational. So it's got that jazz feel like that. And it's just a wonderful record. They do a version like Sweet Georgia Brown, Sauerkraut and Solar Energy, which is kind of an original on the spot. A-Train, the Billy Strayhorn thing Duke Ellington would do. There's a Dvorak piece, Going Home, taken from Dvorak, and then some originals and traditional songs in the bluegrass, rootsy vein. But a fantastic album. If you want something to sound great on your rig, but you want it to be good music, not just a great clinical sounding audiophile record, you don't have to wait for any kind of repress. Find a copy of this. Ain't too expensive. Highly recommend it. Keeping in with the sort of improvisational jamming thing, the second album of Quicksilver Messenger Service from 1969, Happy Trails, Quicksilver Messenger Service, one of the great early of the San Francisco bands, along with the Jefferson Airplane and Grateful Dead. I think Quicksilver would come next. And then, of course, Moby Grape and Big Brother and the Holding Company and Country Joe and the Fish, and, you know, all of them. And I know Creedence Clearwater. I could list so many. This is my original copy from 1969 because it has the original Maslov name on it. I must have taken this to a friend's house back then. This was on Capitol Records. Their second album, I love their first album with that great version of Pride of Man, the Hamilton Camp song with Gold and Silver, The Fool. John Cipollina and Gary Duncan. Gary Duncan kind of gets forgotten in terms of his name, but the two guitar players, very different sounds. I mean, I'm partial to Cipollina because he has a very unique sound, almost like that vibrato SG thing, where his his guitar playing sounds a little like an alligator sound, and the effects he does and the wah-wah are great. But when they jam together, it's killer. Now, this is recorded at both the Fillmore West and the Fillmore East, as well as Coast Recorders in San Francisco studio. So you can't really tell what is studio and what is live, except for on side one. Side one is the Ellis McDaniels Who Do You Love? And it goes on and on and on, and it goes in these various subsections where they're jamming. So they call it When Do You Love? Where Do You Love? How Do You Love? Which Do You Love? And then back to Who Do You Love? And it takes up the entire side. So side one is just a great elongated improvisational piece based on the Bo Diddley song, the Elias McDaniels, of course, Bo Diddley, Who Do You Love? And that's that chunk, ka-chunk, chunk, and it goes on, and it just do a fabulous, fabulous version of it. It gets really psychedelic. It has a lot of dynamics in the arrangement and in the various components. Side two, another Bo Diddley song, opens up with Mona. It's about a 7-minute version, and it goes into original that I've always loved, Maiden of the Cancer Moon. And it goes into another Gary Duncan song called Calvary, which I just adore. I love Quicksilver Messenger Service. I always talk about these first two records. The third one's okay. Then Dino Valenti comes back, and even though they have the bigger hits with Have Another Hit, that whole reverb-drenched thing, I like Dino Valenti, Chet Bowers, Dino Valenti, when he's really the solo folk singer. And I think I wish Quicksilver had, continued in this formation, with the addition on album 3 of Nicky Hopkins, a great piano player. It ends with a very short 47-second version of Happy Trails, the Roy Rogers, Dale Evans song, written by Dale Evans, that just kind of closes it out, a studio recording. I love these illustrations here. I love the Globe Propaganda, the studio that did this cover. So a fabulous live hybrid album from 1968, from that whole San Francisco scene, San Francisco sound. A must in any San Francisco psychedelic collection. I recently did features on Pink Floyd's Pompeii thing. I always thought that period of Pink Floyd, Pompeii especially, and the previous live show they did, live in a studio really, in the Fillmore auditorium without an audience, of KQED TV in San Francisco, Pink Floyd. They're the closest to these San Francisco bands, especially the Dead, the Airplane, and Quicksilver around that period. Again, when I talk about the Airplane and that, I mean of the live Airplane, not so much the studio with that great live album that they put out in 1968. So, Quicksilver Messenger Service, the second album, Happy Trails. That is the episode of It's the Music Stupid, number 72. Thanks for watching. So much more to come on the channel, so please subscribe and like and do all those things. I appreciate it. Mazzy loves you.